ELD with Brainstorm MTG back here, and we've got Death and Taxes versus Delver. Bailey leading out with a Plains into Mother of Runes, and that is getting Snap, Force of Will, pitching a Spell Pierce. Not a ton of targets for Spell Pierce in this matchup. That is just going to enable the Force of Will for John, keeping his removal live for the matchup. Delver typically having at least Lightning Bolts, sometimes Forked Bolt. Wasteland into Stoneforge Mystic. That is getting Daze. Daze is such a good card in this matchup. A little worse on the draw. Delver finally coming down here. A lot of Wastelands for Bailey here, and just a Jeet. It looks like I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that land for the Delver, and it does flip. So looking good for John so far, as long as he can keep creatures off the other side of the board. Otherwise, that Umezawa's Jitte is going to start mowing down his threats. Delver usually consisting of Deathrite Shaman, Delver of Secrets, and then in this case, not sure if he's on the Grixis plan or on a bug list, but Flicker Wisp coming down, Brainstorm from John. This is a big play here. Flicker Wisp is going to reset that Delver, unless he can find some type of counter, preferably Daze. Not a lot of cards in hand here. And he does find another Daze, so really pulling a lot of weight so far in the matchup. Hard counter twice. Low cost of returning a land, and yet another Delver gets added on. Bailey's threats a little costly so far, and looks like he's choosing to keep Rishadenport up instead of Wasteland. An interesting choice there. I got to feel like Wasteland would have been the better call. I could have actually used it on his turn to further restrict John's mana. Let's see if he's punished for it. And at 2 mana, a Dark Confidant comes down. And there's going to be a lot of counters generated here. Once that Mirran Crusader picks up a piece of equipment, it is so much more lethal. There he goes. Now this is double strike. It's likely to draw a block from the Delver of Secrets. It'll still be catastrophic, but it's not as bad as taking the 4 damage and letting 4 counters pile up. So just 2 counters are going to come in here, and he's going to go ahead and take out that Delver right away. Dark Confidant, a much smaller threat, also happens to be black. Mirran Crusader has protection from him all day. Delver playing nice so far, revealing a land. I'm sorry, Dark Confidant playing nice, revealing that fetch land. Armogoyf coming on for John. Again, green. Not a ton of help versus Mirran Crusader, although it does threaten a lethal crackback. John will be able to gain 8 life if he chooses. And Swords to Plowshares. Instead going with another Mirran Crusader. That pro-green and pro-black doing a lot of work here. Protection from most of John's deck. That likely means that he's going to be on Abrupt Decays. And that's exactly what we see here. Abrupt Decay targeting the Jeet. That's going to allow, or force John, I should say, to gain 6 life. Not exactly where he wants to be, but still posing a very significant clock. He's going to go ahead and cycle off that Horizon Canopy, sacrificing it to draw a card. Arrakis comes down. And just going in for 4, which will be 8 after double strike. For sure, Tarmogoyf's not blocking. Delver is a decision. Looks like John is hellbent here. He's really going to need some type of direct damage, and that is something these builds lack. Deathrite Shaman often giving a little bit of reach, but that is a very slow plan at this point. And he looks like he is agonizing over this decision as to whether or not to chump block with that Delver. Unclear what he'll be able to draw to stay alive here. Abrupt Decay, not particularly useful here. And Rashadan Port is tapped here. Bailey could have had it available. Goyf coming in. Swords clearing the way, and that's going to do it. With just Abrupt Decay in hand, this is going to be the 8 lethal damage. That is the end of Game 1. Mirran Crusaders doing a tremendous amount of work here. Essentially a true name nemesis of sorts against John's deck in particular, with protection from both green and black. Deathrite Shaman, Dark Confidant, Tarmogoyf, none of those able to stand up to the double striker. Delver of Secrets does not trade favorably with it. While they're sideboarding, I'd like to thank Scholars hosting another awesome Legacy event. We've got another one coming up April 28th. There'll be some Legacy action before then. I'm sorry, Vintage action before then as well. Go ahead and check and see when that is. Let's see here. Still sideboarding. We've got a moment. Sure, I plugged the right date. It is monthly vintage. The next one is listed as April 21st. Go ahead and like the Scholars Facebook page to be kept up to date on all of our monthly events. Of course, every Wednesday night we play Legacy 7:30, broadcast live on Twitch. That is the primary source of the footage for this channel. Every single week, 4 rounds of Legacy. Just crossed 300 subscribers, so thanks to everyone who's subscribed and helped spread the word about the channel. Last couple of months, things have definitely been improving in terms of the direction of the channel. Trying to work on the quality. Appreciate all of the suggestions that I've gotten. Implement quite a lot of them. John here on the play likely is going to want a solid 1-drop, either Delver or Deathrite. Kick things off. Lacking that is actually throwing it back. Death and Taxes, a really solid game versus the other fair decks. Looks like Polluted Delta fetching into a turn 1 play here. Underground Sea. Delver typically not running any basics. And Deathrite Shaman. Mother of Runes, so a couple of iconic 1-drops coming out here for both decks. Mother of Runes threatens to obsolete all of the removal on John's deck, particularly against cards like Abrupt Decay, which costs 2 mana. So much worse than investing just 1 mana. Problem typically compounds because you have to both fire off some removal or force a block and then respond. It's just so much harder to play in those tight spaces. And brainstorming as well for John. So really trying to dig and find some quality cards here. Looks like he's managed to get Daze into his hand. Thinking through this brainstorm. He does have fetch lands. He also has Delver. And it looks like he's going to go ahead and fetch, taking maximum use of card selection there. He's going to go ahead and dismember the Mother Runes before it gets active. So prioritizing that over the Delver. Does have a clock in Deathrite Shaman. And Stoneforge Mystic comes down, and we did see Daze earlier. Certainly worth stopping that card. Super grindy in that it generates card advantage. Will also give some extra card advantage with the equipment once it starts hitting either Jite or Sword of Fire and Ice. Both of them exceptionally good versus John's deck. And Vendilion Click comes down, gets hit by a Swords to Plowshares, and now John has a decision to make on what to bottom. Looks like a Palace Jailer, a Mother of Runes, a Flicker Wisp, and a Karakas. And maybe Sanctum Prelate. Feel like it should be. See if that's what goes to the bottom. And Mother of Runes bottom, so we will see what that other card is. And Thalia coming down. So traded a Mom into a Thalia. And now John going Hellbent, dropping Goyf and Delver, so he has the whole squad. Only thing missing perhaps is Leovold. Though actually I guess we did see that Vendilion Click, so his list does have some interesting choices in it. Path to Exile hitting Goyf, and no search. Delver blind flipping. Schadenport being activated for perhaps the first time in the match here. That's going to cut John off of black mana. Still plenty of blue with those 2 tropical islands. And it looks like a Force of Will. Daily reminding him to pay the 1 extra for Brainstorm. Value going to tax all of those inexpensive card drawing spells, which are meant to smooth out your draws. Once Thalia is down, they actually start to make all of your draws more clunky, which is hugely problematic. Flicker Wisp resetting Delver of Secrets. On who's what's on top. Not a good time. Delver can potentially slow things down a bit. I'm sorry, Deathrite can potentially slow things down a bit, gaining life. You do that so many times. And Delver fearlessly charging into that Flicker Wisp. Getting in the extra point. Now a pair of Deathrites does represent a pretty reasonable clock. That'll be 4 turns. And John is actually under a 4-turn clock himself. So a lot of different ways that this could go. Delver flipping complicates matters. There's some real decisions to be made here. A lot of cards to play with. Cannot swing with Thalia, of course. Could double block. And it is actually a Palace Jailer. Pull up the actual Oracle text on that. Oh, the Wizards page just doesn't work. They're the worst. Unbelievable. Regardless, it's gonna do its job in removing that creature from the game for the time being. And it looks like Deathrite Shaman gonna try and put some counterplay in terms of raining Bailey. But it looks like the clock is gonna be a little too fast here. And another Flicker Wisp. Wasteland having removed that black source. Life gain is going to be the only thing John's lands will deliver. You'll have to use a pair. That's actually why I wanted to get the Oracle text. It looks like it's when the Jailer dies that he'd get back that creature. Not a card that's played very often. And Flicker Wisp coming in the air. The Jailer's exact text is actually 4 mana. When it enters the battlefield, you become the Monarch, and when it enters the battlefield, exile target creature an opponent controls until an opponent becomes the Monarch. So that's actually very good. It's not a leaves play trigger. It's just when he becomes the Monarch. So John is going to need to find a way to deal combat damage to become the Monarch. And that is just a blowout situation. So Flicker was combining with the seldom played Palace Jailer. Perhaps a good metagame call here. Flicker Wisps again coming in one last time, finish off that final 6 damage. So very effective threats there from Bailey. Those Deathrites not in a position to really counteract the effects of the Palace Jailer, especially when it's been flickered in and out with that Flicker Wisp. So well done by Bailey, moving on, getting closer to that elimination rounds. All right, well, we've got plenty of matches this week. Feel free to check out the other videos, and any feedback is always welcome in the comments. Thanks for watching. You made it to the end of the video. Thanks for watching. If you want to help the channel, you can click like or subscribe, or you can check out some of our other videos covering Magic's most powerful formats. Thanks for watching.